Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo. Coming up on the show, we've got a jam-packed session of gaming goodness. Plus, we'll be taking a look at a brand new console. Always exciting, a new console, Hex.
Yes, we've been playing the Vita for the last couple of weeks, and we'll be giving you our initial impressions, as well as taking a look at one of its launch titles, Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Why is the building on fire?
Plus, Goose will have a look at the evolution of the handheld console and our first backwards compatible of the year.
And Jackie Estacado returns in the Darkness 2 in what we think has probably been the most gory game we've played in a while.
But first, can you guess the app for this week?
Oh.
What is that?
Yes, we've been having some fun of our own with a certain handheld device that rhymes with iMoan.
What a mystery. Go read the news, Hex.
All right.
It's on the iPhone.
Good game.
Last week, a bill was introduced to the federal parliament that will bring Australia one step closer to an R18+ rating for video games. If all goes according to plan, the amendments to the Classification Act 1995 and the Broadcasting Services Act 1992 will allow games with R18+ content to be sold in Australian stores from January 2013 onwards. Blizzard Entertainment is taking Valve Software to court over the use of the trademark Dota, short for Defense of the Ancients. The legal stoush is a result of Valve Software's attempt to register the Dota trademark for their upcoming title Dota 2. With Blizzard also developing a title called Blizzard Dota. Blizzard is arguing that the term Dota had been used for 7 years in relation to the popular Warcraft 3 mod and has become firmly associated with Blizzard.
That is for you to decide.
The winners of this year's Interactive Achievement Awards have been crowned, with The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim picking up the highly coveted Game of the Year title. Skyrim also took home gongs for Best RPG, as well as Outstanding Achievement in Story, Gameplay, Engineering, and Game Direction. Portal 2 also won big, claiming 3 awards for Outstanding Achievement in Music Composition, Character Performance, and Connectivity.
1, 2, 3. That's high. It's too high, isn't it, really, that? All right, going on 3 just gives you too much time to think about it.
While Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception also picked up 3 gongs for Outstanding Achievement in Animation, Art Direction, and Visual Engineering. Adam Adamowicz, one of the main concept artists behind popular Bethesda titles such as Fallout 3 and Skyrim, has sadly passed away following a long battle with cancer. At just 42 years old, Adamowicz was a prolific artist who worked mostly by hand and had also previously worked on the Nightcaster and Goblin Commander games.
The original The Darkness was based on the comic book of the same name, and it was pretty fun. The sequel is brought to us by a different developer, and it has a different look. It's time to step out of the light and into the darkness, too.
The first time you use the darkness, it scares you. But once you've tasted it, you can't stop.
How is that?
Jackie Estacado has the curse of the darkness inside him, which gives him demonic powers.
The darkness tore its way through the world, inhabiting one human host after another, each thinking that they were its master. But you can't own the darkness. The darkness owns you.
It's an internal struggle between host and parasite, which he's managed to keep under wraps for 2 years. But in an explosive opening sequence, he's forced to unleash it to save his life. A group known as the Brotherhood are keen to siphon its power.
Embrace the darkness, Jackie. I'm free!
The Brotherhood force all the action within the game, but really this is a love story between Jackie and his dead girlfriend Jenny. He constantly sees apparitions of her throughout the game, and his wanting to reconnect with her is the driving force behind it. It's more important than all of his mafia worries.
Dance with me, Jackie.
I thought some of those flashback moments were done with real class, Hex. You know, you really feel that they worked hard to build that connection, and I think they pulled it off.
Yeah, there's moments where you're just holding her and you can just sense his longing. You hardly ever leave Jackie's first-person perspective, and scenes like these have impact because of their pacing with the action and the time taken to let you play them out.
Jackie, we're together now. That's all that matters.
And the music really helps that too.
The downside is all of this walking and talking to people and wandering about, it's so much waffle that it becomes a bit frustrating, almost heading into Splinter Cell double agent territory, but not quite. Although I did enjoy all the mafia talk and stereotypes.
Hey there.
Hey!
Hey, yo, Paulie, I got you them tickets to the game. My treat.
Oh!
Oh, Mr. Galvani. Oh, Billy, how you doing?
I'm walking here.
Darkness here!
Hey, wait.
We can be gangster.
Yeah, totally. I really enjoyed talking to Chief Grumbles, though.
Hey, Chief, how's the wife and kids?
He had so much to say.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe they intended these to be filler or padding, but they didn't cut the fat, so I wasn't really engaged with what was going on, and there tended to be a lot of repetition. It's all the darkness this, the darkness that, the darkness over here, and about halfway through, which is about 3 hours into the campaign, I felt like, no, I can't be bothered anymore, and I just wanted to skip everything. I got fed up.
Stop talking and show me what you can do.
Yeah, it is refreshing to have a shooter that's not just a war game though. Plus you have awesome demon arms.
Yeah.
Jackie uses his demonic extremities to slash at nearby opponents and uses his arms to grab and throw objects at enemies, which often ends up in a nasty impale or a sideways slice. It really makes you feel like a demonic predator as they lurk near the edges of the screen, but I didn't find them visually intrusive at all, which is good.
Yeah, on the PC version, you do have a bit of that field of view problem where they take up a lot of the screen, kind of like Skyrim. The developer is patching that, but even so, I still preferred it on PC just for the controls. I found it was a bit more fluid with the mouse and keyboard, with the arms whipping off in all directions, but personal preference.
You can also pull off some brutal finishes in this game. A warning now to look away if you're not partial to bodies being torn in half.
Yes, this is the most gory game I've ever seen get through our classification system.
It's pretty full on, especially the wishbone.
Oh.
I think people go into this expecting to see gore and probably chose to play it because of that, much like you'd go to see a slasher film. The biggest issue I had was with the lengthiness of it all. Those graphic moments are really drawn out, which makes it quite offensive on the eyes, and all those finisher animations just take so long that I just felt it broke up the gameplay too much.
Yeah, I hate having control taken away from me for that amount of time, and the game encourages you to do these finishes too, because you get essence, which you then put into all of your trees, and you get more from doing them. My problem with it isn't the gore itself, it's the fact they use it so much. That means when it really matters, when they want to show a really dark moment, it loses all of the impact because it's just another dark moment in a sea of dark moments. I think they get away with it because of the cartoony look to the game. One thing I did like very much though was the stay out of the light mechanic. When you're in the light, your arms disappear and you can't use their abilities, and you also can't regenerate health. And I thought they did a pretty good job of mixing that action up and changing your tactics by throwing light at you. When you get into the safety of the darkness, you feel a genuine sense of relief, and that's because in the light, the audio and visual effects, they're not painful, but they're frustrating and stressful, and I thought that worked quite well. Ammo is scarce too, and that all adds to the tension. Plus, I thought the guns had a really nice kick to them. They all felt really good, and dual wielding is hectic.
Yeah, you could really get a good rhythm going.
Yeah. I know it's not a long game, but I still felt there weren't enough guns. There weren't that many. Same for enemies, actually.
Yeah, really only a handful, not counting boss fights. Standard goons sometimes with torches, enemies with whips that steal your gun, shielded guys and teleporty guys. The action almost fast though, and fights will see you retreating and moving forward when the situation dictates.
The short length to the campaign is helped by a fairly decent multiplayer mode. 4 players can team up as part of the Darkness B team and do missions which run alongside the campaign.
This is a chance for you guys to prove yourselves, all right?
There's the gun expert, the swordsman, the voodoo guy, and this guy.
Lasses, grab your lads!
These sections don't have the same storytelling focus as the main campaign, but I quite enjoyed playing with all the different characters and their abilities.
Too bad for you.
And I thought the lobby works really well. I mean, characters sit around a table talking to each other as players connect. The dialogue is all quite humorous too. I mean, this is a polished game from start to finish, with some surprises and excellent transitions. We're withholding some of the more spoilerific story stuff, obviously, but I think this is really worth a playthrough if you're looking for something different. And just quickly, Bajo, what did you think of that whole comic book outline art style?
Some of the GG team really hated it, but I thought it was great. It embraces the comic book roots of the game, and I thought they did a good job with all the little pencil scratchings around the lines. Some really pretty moments in this game.
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought it was really appropriate to the game. I'm giving this one 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I'm giving it 6.5. We recently spoke with one of the producers behind the game about the art direction they chose.
The narrative demands violence. Like, he's a mafia don who has control over an ancient being of chaos. He's not going to be friendly. So then we started to play with an art style that would work well with the narrative that we wanted to tell, and having all the Top Cow comics around was perfect because we're looking at them, we're like, I want it to look like this. This is amazing.
And you can see that full interview on the website.
Good game.
Miyamoto, I think, really defined a lot of my early experiences. Every game that has a jump in it, I still compare to Super Mario Brothers, and I feel like it comes up short against the brilliance of just the jump in Super Mario Brothers is so great. He's also held up just as an individual and an ambassador for gaming all across the world, so that's something I think we can all admire.
Catherine is a bizarre puzzle platformer that follows the story of Vincent Brooks, a young guy in a long-term relationship who starts to fear the responsibility and commitment that his girlfriend Catherine is weighing on him.
We'll just have to split up the housework, okay? You can't throw your clothes everywhere anymore.
Oh, okay.
Every night he vents his troubles with his bros at their local haunt, the Stray Sheep. But when Vincent heads to bed that evening, he is thrown into a bizarre nightmare in which men everywhere have been turned into sheep and forced to climb a seemingly endless block tower to avoid falling to their doom.
It's here that you'll begin your nightly test of patience, wit, and indeed your own commitment to the game, as you'll have your fair share of rage quit moments. The first 4 stages are fairly forgiving. You'll slowly learn various techniques of block arrangement, demolition, and stacking to climb to the surface, as you can't jump and can only climb 1 block at a time. But each area will add a new and frustrating challenge for you to face.
Yeah, just when you feel like you're getting the hang of it, it'll throw something at you like ice blocks that send you sliding into oblivion. Or spikes, exploding blocks, chainsaws bent on carving you into pieces. And at the end of each stage is a terrifying boss level, where your commitment nightmares of marriage and children materialize below you.
There are checkpoints along the way which will make things a little easier for you, and the difficulty settings at the start will determine how many retries you get before it's game over. But you'll pick up retry pillows along the way which continuously stack up every time you die, so you're rarely at a loss for opportunities to try again.
There are also items you can grab to help you destroy enemies, climb 2 rows at once, create a new block, and you can also buy pre-selected items from a sheep vendor in the Nightmare lobby, but you can only carry 1 at a time.
It's the kind of puzzling that just keeps you coming back, isn't it? Some blocks can't be moved at all, and you'll occasionally build yourself into a hole that you can't get out of, and it just drives you crazy.
Budge.
Yeah, it is addictive. I would have liked some more variety though, and when I learned that this game was pretty much just going to be a block climbing puzzler, I was a little bit like, how many levels are there? How many levels?
It's weird, I thought I would feel that way too, but you really are building on techniques that you've learned as they piled more challenges on you with each stage, and I quite like that idea of expanding the foundations of my block knowledge. It was overwhelming at times, but it was a good challenge as well.
All right, I got it. I made it! Here I go.
And it's all tied together with this mysterious and involving story. I mean, the Moorishness of this game for me was in fact 50% block mania, and 50% this bizarre story. Often I can find these long drawn out cutscenes in Japanese games quite tedious, but here I was completely involved. The story gets complicated when Vince wakes up from his first nightmare and discovers a cute blonde in his bed, who also goes by the name of Catherine. He can't remember how she got there, and she seems to be rather enamored with him.
You do feel for the guy. He's just woken up and he's suddenly cheating on his girlfriend and he has no idea how it happened.
Yeah, the theme of the game deals with fidelity and honesty, which is certainly unique for a video game, I think. So he's got pressure from his girlfriend, and suddenly this creepy blonde has popped up out of nowhere and begins sending him a saucy string of texts and picture messages.
You spend a fair bit of time in this game sending text messages to both of the Catherines, and whether you choose to reply to them or not will affect a morality gauge, and this is also affected by dialogue choices you make in the game. At the Stray Sheep, chatting to patrons will help you learn more about the mystery that plagues your dreams at night. Some of the spa stuff can get a bit tedious. A lot of what these patrons are telling you is repeated information.
Yeah, but it all adds to the intrigue, though, even if the twist in the story is a little predictable. I also loved how the generic questions the player is asked about lying, fidelity, and relationships are charted online, so you can see how other players have answered as well. And all of the choices in the game will work towards which ending you'll ultimately face. And there are actually 8 different endings to Catherine, depending on your moral choices. But we should wrap this up, Badge.
Yes, I thought this was really interesting and different puzzler, and after a while I started to get that puzzle quest obsession, you know, where I just needed to keep jumping over blocks, and yeah, I'm giving it 7 out of 10. I had a good time.
I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this. I mean, I was thoroughly engrossed in every cutscene, and while I did throw the controller down a few times in frustration, I kept coming back, and that was partly because, you know, I wanted to best the beast, but also because I had to know how it all worked out for Vince. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Handheld gaming has come a long way. Nowadays, all that fun number crunching is done on a wafer-thin CPU. But how did it get this good? In 1977, big things happened. The Atari 2600 was released, Star Wars opened in cinemas, and toy company Mattel released the world's first all-electronic handheld game, Auto Race. Using only 512 bytes of code, all you did was steer a red LED across 3 lanes to avoid, well, other red LEDs, but it was a big enough success to get game manufacturers thinking. In fact, just a few years later, in 1980, Nintendo would take its first majorly successful step into the world of video games with the Game & Watch. Each device was hard-coded with just a single game. A humble black and white LED screen and just a couple of buttons was all it took to convince us we were diving for treasure, dodging a downpour of tools, or showing Kong who's king. Almost 60 different Game & Watches were made, and over 40 million of these things were sold. And amidst the countless imitations that flooded the market, it was Nintendo who would cook the Game & Watch concept into something far more powerful, the 8-bit Game Boy. Launching in 1989, the Game Boy stuck with the monochrome LCD display, but allowed the swapping of cartridges for a whole library of portable fun. The most famous being the hypnotic block dropper Tetris, a game that's still being released on handhelds to this day. The Game Boy's success is even more stunning when you realise that in the very same year, Atari released a handheld almost twice as powerful, complete with backlit colour screen, the Lynx. But there are reasons why the Lynx failed to catch on. This thing was more portly than portable, with a bad battery life of 4 hours on 6 AA's, and an expensive price tag to boot. Even so, games like Todd's Adventures in Slime World with its Metroid-like platform action showcase just what impressive handheld tech the brick-like Lynx was for its time. Its sprite scaling was way ahead of Mode 7 on the SNES. And you could even turn the Lynx upside down if you were left-handed. Not to be outdone by its rivals, arcade giant Sega pitched in a few years later with the Game Gear. This was Sega's attempt at a portable version of their Master System console. Like the Lynx, it went for a more comfortable landscape shape, backlit, colour screen, and cartridge format. Here was the thrill of Sonic the Hedgehog, the arcade action of Shinobi, and Sega's own attempt at Tetris, columns. However, everyone was still enamoured with Nintendo's little black and white baby thanks to an ever-growing library of games, one of which would become a portable phenomenon, Pokémon. Ah, Pokémon, we chose you. And then Nintendo stepped on the gas, upgrading the Game Boy to colour, but still no backlight. They were determined to make those batteries last as long as possible. In Japan, more contenders came to the portable party. Neo Geo unleashed their Pocket Color with a strong lineup of fighting games, and Bandai busted out the WonderSwan Color, boosted by ports of the first few Final Fantasies. But Nintendo would trump everyone again at the turn of the century with the Game Boy Advance, a bigger, brighter screen, shoulder buttons, SNES-like graphics, and backwards compatibility with the original Game Boy. Who could resist? Games like Advance Wars, with its brilliant turn-based strategy, made this a must-have system, even though the control layout was still hardly different to the Game & Watch. 2003 saw mobile phone giant Nokia try its best to convince us we wanted a hybrid music player, phone, and gaming device, as if that would ever catch on. The N-Gage was horribly designed. A curved keypad, are you serious? and it just failed to get gamers or developers on board. The Game Boy Advance was still where it was at, and then Nintendo turned around and said, "Would you like a touchscreen with that?" The Nintendo DS finally brought some innovation to the world of handheld gaming after almost 25 years of punching just a couple of buttons. Not just the touch tech, but an inbuilt microphone, wireless connectivity, and 2 screens. Games like Rhythm Heaven and The World Ends With You, just to name a few, proved that the hardware innovation meant evolved gameplay too. We were so impressed, we even went puppy-eyed over Nintendogs. Briefly. And then in 2005, Sony set out to prove that Nintendo couldn't be top dog forever. It was time for one of the world's biggest brands, PlayStation, to go portable. The PSP was a sexy piece of gear. It had the widest screen on a handheld ever, an analog nub, an optical disc format, and enough power to render PS2-like graphics. Everything from the sleek racing of Ridge Racer to the glitz of Lumines, and even a GTA game in the form of Vice City Stories. And yet, once again, it was Mario's Mushroom Kingdom that won out. Nintendo sold double the number of DSs to PSPs.
I'll give you a chance. One chance.
But the PSP had still raised the bar. Now we all expected much, much more from our handheld devices. And you know what? Another player had slowly crept into view from a very unlikely source. Apple. The iPhone, launched in 2007, quickly proved it was no slouch when it came to touchscreen gaming. The App Store made it super easy to download new games, and if you were always going to carry your phone with you, why bother bringing a second gaming device when this could do the job? The rest is history. Nintendo's answer to this has been the 3DS, which delivered glasses-free 3D. Pretty impressive tech. But sales have been slow. There just aren't enough games, and after all this time in the spotlight, it feels like Nintendo could be losing its grip. And now here comes Sony with their answer to all this touchy gaming, a PSP on steroids with 2 touch surfaces and 2 analog sticks. Is it really Sony's turn to run off with the handheld handbasket? Only time will tell.
Good game.
Thanks, Goose. Well, we've had the Vita for a few weeks now, and we'll get to our review of Uncharted in just a minute. Plus, over on Spawn Point, you can also see our reviews of Mod Nation, Racers, and Wipeout.
We should disclaim that this isn't the final product, but it's pretty close. What are your impressions, Hex?
Well, I thought the speakers were fantastic, and it's got a great screen. It makes going back to a 3DS or a PSP pretty difficult. I think also it fits comfortably in your hands as well. It's a good weight, although it takes a little bit of getting used to the trigger placement.
I thought the buttons were a little bit too small for my liking, but I did get used to it. The best part is the 2 sticks. They feel great, and you know, shooters never worked on the PSP because it didn't have that second stick, so now that problem is solved. The back pad though, it felt weird in every game I tried it with. I can't imagine this being a feature that I'll enjoy that much, but who knows. Also, the touchscreen is really responsive. The battery life isn't that great, and once again, this isn't the final product, but with Uncharted, we only got about 3 hours of play before needing a recharge. Speaking of Uncharted, let's take a look at Golden Abyss.
Set before the time of the first Uncharted game, Nathan teams up with his old and slightly dodgy friend Dante.
Sell men's shoes where you got those?
Oh, very funny. Mr. Nathan Drake, always good for a laugh.
And Chase, who is looking for her grandfather, an archaeologist who's gone missing.
Only my grandfather calls me Marissa.
Fine, Chase.
You know, you're not walking, you're running.
Yeah, I tend to do that when an army of thugs is using me for target practice.
The usual mix of ancient discovery and double-crossing ensue.
Hex, I didn't really like the characters in this game very much, especially the villain, who you don't learn enough about to really fear.
General, I don't know what Dante told you.
Oh, your partner was very informative, Senorita. What was it that he said again? Oh, yes, that you are a thief and a liar.
The lack of warmth in some of these scenes just reinforce how important it is to have those moments in an Uncharted game.
Partners.
No.
I found that the writing was mostly about what was happening as opposed to the story, you know, so it was all very expositional. Go over here, do that, how are we going to get over there? And I found myself towards the end of the game, in fact, even about halfway through, just wanting to start skipping them. They all covered loading well, but I just wanted more of the mystery and more of the character development that we're so used to in these games.
Hey, the Kuna? They were in this part of Central America.
Come on, I got more to show you.
I found myself losing track of where I was and why I was there, and I think part of that is because you're gaming on the go, so you need that story reinforcement just constantly.
Nate is still his bumbly self, though. One thing this game is really good at is keeping the other characters close to you. They never get in the way as you move through the levels, and they keep pace, so there's no babysitting. Although there is one section where you have to try and keep Sully alive, and you both just die over and over and over again. And this is partly because, just like all the other games, enemies are just stubbornly given so much health. I mean, the tougher ones take 2 grenades or rockets to go down. I mean, it's a bit silly.
Drop your weapon. I need some help down here. Now.
I must have died 25 times in that section. Admittedly, on easy or very easy, this game is a lot more fun and that doesn't happen. But the whole game just feels like every single area had something that needed a little bit of work, and it can't help but feel a bit rushed, as impressive as it is. This game was made by Bend Studio, which is a different developer, so maybe it's just a bit of launch-itis, because that studio was responsible for the excellent Siphon Filter games on the PSP, which were definitely the best shooters on that console by far.
Yeah, look, even with the rough edges, I think they have done a good job here. If you're expecting a PS3 experience on a handheld, then you'll be disappointed with this, but the game does look beautiful, especially Nathan's animations, and the camera work is really solid. Plus, the detail on the water and textures is the best we've seen on a handheld to date. There are only a couple of really big, Uncharted exploding moments, but they do look good.
By the end of the game, though, I felt like I'd only visited 3 or 4 locations in total, but it is a decent length.
Naturally, every single touchscreen or motion gimmick you can think of has been crammed into this game as the developer tries to utilize everything the console comes with. What do you think worked and what didn't, Barjo?
I thought some were inspired and really thought out, and some were just pointless, like stroking the back pad just to row a boat for 5 minutes.
I thought the whole idea was to sneak in the back door, quietly.
What the hell? Also, taking photos of things and balancing on logs, it's so 2008 and it's just not fun. There are also moments where you have to readjust to do a QuickTime event on the screen, and I think they're okay, but that having to let go and readjust to touch the screen does kind of break the momentum a bit. It's not that fluid. You can also parkour by tapping the screen to jump over things, but once again, it just doesn't feel natural.
I think just because the console has these features doesn't necessarily mean you have to utilize them in every game. I mean, the first time I had a go of the Vita was at E3, and I played Little Big Planet, which is the perfect quirky platformer to make use of all those extra elements in the rear touchpad and the touchscreen, and it was wonderful. But here it feels messy, and I hate having to take my hands off the thing all the time.
Yeah, I think it's normal for launch games to try and utilize everything. Like the PS3 original games did heaps of that 6-axis stuff, and then they just did away with it after a while. So I think it's good that they experimented, though.
The rearranged puzzles were okay, and I like that the gyroscope can be used to help with taking photos or aiming. There's one more excellent use of it later on, which we won't spoil for you, but in the end I just turned all the motion stuff off.
Yeah, me too.
The cover system works as it should, and the bullet registration all works fine too. Some of the enemy animations jump about a bit as you shoot them, and the AI is a little bit average at times as enemies stand out in the open and just boldly walk around in front of you even though you're shooting a turret or a chain gun at them.
Hex, this is an impressive shooter in some areas, but it's so rough in others, and by the end of it, I just didn't have a good time. And I think back to the God of War games on PSP, and they really added to the series. In many ways, they were better than the PS3 version or even the PS2 versions of God of War, and this game just doesn't really do anything for the Uncharted series.
I just wanted the puzzles to be tougher. I mean, none of the puzzles in this game were even half as challenging as the first puzzle in Uncharted 3, and with a touchscreen, there's so much room for puzzle fun. Now, I think they did a good job mostly, but they just missed a whole bunch of opportunities.
Yeah. And it's also completely missing multiplayer, which is such a shame. It's always hard judging a new game on a new console, but trying to extrapolate the potential of this device, it feels like a 7 out of 10 from me.
It's 7.5 from me. Along with the Vita reviews on Spawn Point, we'll also be checking out more of these games in the future, including Escape Plan, FIFA, Ridge Racer, and something called Touch My Katamari.
Good game.
So, did you guess the app for this week?
Yay! It was our new Good Game iPhone app, and you can download it for free.
On the app, you can watch our reviews or leave your own, as well as watch the show, and you can also share information about the games you're playing, and it even has achievements to unlock.
We shall return next week with a look at Resident Evil Revelations on 3DS.
I found a survivor. The BOW's got her, though.
And Final Fantasy XIII 2. Plus, Goose investigates the seedier side of gaming, the hacksaw.
Thanks for tweeting and downloading, guys, and we can't wait to hear what you think of the app. Till next week, gamers, Hex out.
Bardo out.
What else rhymes with I-moan?
T-bone.
Dry.
Tie-bone.
Dry bone. Dry. Lone. High cone.